human mind. 600 miles of synaptic fiber.
If you think about it, video games are kind of a magical thing. Like all media, the experience is completely unique to the consumer, and everyone comes away with their own opinions. But what makes video games so special when compared to a movie, an album, or a book is that the player controls the experience. You, as the player, have the ability to connect as shallowly or as deeply as you'd like, and as the classic saying goes, you reap what you sow. If you play an open-world RPG and only follow the main quest, you will have a completely different experience with the game than someone who spends hours completing side quests and delving into every hole possible. But what does that have to do with Psychonauts? I assume you've seen the title of the video and that's why you're here, and you already know what I'm talking about. And if you somehow came across this with no idea, maybe you fell asleep during a 6-hour deep dive into the lore of Mario Teaches Typing and woke up to this, welcome to a completely different video and subject. But Psychonauts is a game that means a lot to me. It's a wonderful balancing act of humorous dialogue, mostly stellar platforming, we'll talk about that, and a heartwarming story about what makes people human. One thing I love about Psychonauts is that no matter how deeply you connect with the game while playing, whether you complete every objective or simply follow the tasks given to you, you still can come away with the same meaning and the same understanding of the world. Unless you play the game skipping every cutscene, every wonderful piece of dialogue, and without audio. But really at that point, what are you even doing? And better yet, why are you even watching this video? Psychonauts forces you to connect with the characters in the world because you are literally exploring the different characters' innermost thoughts and feelings, diving into their brains and helping to solve or at least unravel their problems. So, at the end of the day, when you finish the game, you are left with a beautiful cast of characters who you can remember by the extremely distinct worlds that live inside of their heads. And that is what I want to talk about here. The world of Psychonauts, the different locations and minds you explore, from the overarching plot to the most minute detail. So I was super heavily inspired by the YouTuber 2C Phoenix after watching his Kingdom Hearts and Super Mario Sunshine breakdowns to make this video, so please go check those out. But basically, what I want to do is go through the game, world by world, and explore the characters and their minds, as well as the brilliant use of storytelling elements used throughout the game to tie everything together. Now, that is a daunting task, because while the game can be beaten in around 15 hours in a normal playthrough without rushing, there is a lot to talk about. I don't think this video will be 15 hours long, nor should it be, but the more you dig into things, the longer it gets. So instead of making one massive video like that, like I did when I made my first time beating Skyrim video, I'm going to break this down into smaller chunks, working mostly chronologically through the mind of the game, as well as exploring the hub worlds and meeting the exquisite cast of characters whose minds I don't get to explore. So, since this is the first video, I feel like a short breakdown of the plot is in order for those who need a refresher, or for those who have somehow never played the game. And if that is the case, please go do that right now. I am literally begging you. But anyways, let's get back to the start and begin this deep dive into Psychonauts, a mental masterpiece. Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp is, well, a summer camp for young psychics, built upon the world's largest deposit of Psytanium, an ore that enhances psychic abilities in those with powers, but also has the ability to drive insane or exacerbate the mental states of those susceptible to its influence, which we are told by Ford Kroller, ex-leader of the Psychonauts, a government agency, almost like a group of superheroes who use psychic abilities to protect the world. Whispering Rock is a training facility made by the government to train children so they can join the Psychonauts when they grow up. Now, we will go into the actual history of the summer camp when I get to that video, but for now, let's talk about how the game starts and the very first mind that we explore. The game starts with protagonist Rasputin Aquado, Raz for short, after he is caught eavesdropping on orientation at Camp Whispering Rock. Raz, who began developing psychic abilities, ran away from his home at the circus to join the camp, fearing the wrath of his father, who he believes hates psychics because, quote-unquote, fortune tellers put a curse on the Aquado family that every member will die in water. We can get more into the daddy issues aspect later, because I promise it is a very important through line of this game, but for now, what's important to know is that Raz's acrobatic abilities, which he learned at the circus, as well as the circus itself, will play a large part in the journey to come. This is probably a good point to say that there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then go play the game this instant and report back in like 10 to 15 hours. I will wait. You back now? Good. Let's continue. After being caught by agents and I guess camp counselors, Mia Vodello, Sasha 9, and Coach Morceau Oleander, Raz is allowed to stay the night, but Mia promises she will be calling Raz's father to come pick him up in the morning. And with that, we really begin our game. Before I discuss the game's first world, I want to briefly do a tangent to talk about how much I love the small details of Psychonauts. These are just some little things that add a lot of flavor to the game itself and make for a memorable experience. When you first launch Psychonauts, you load into a title screen of Raz standing on a brain with the Psychonauts logo. Once you hit the continue button though, instead of being taken to a menu to select a save or whatever, you start playing as Raz, and you can run around the surface of the brain. The idea of a playable menu wasn't necessarily new. It had been done before at that point by Super Mario Sunshine, where you play as Mario and jump to hit a block and select your save file. But Psychonauts really stood out to me because of the way you can move around the brain in a 3D space. Super Mario Sunshine was still a 2D menu at its core, which brought it to the next level. It really is something small and inconsequential to the game as a whole, but it captures the player, or at least it captured me right away. Another very small detail that I absolutely love is that when you go to select your save file once again, instead of getting a pop-up menu, you have to choose your bunk in the cabin, with each bunk being a different save file. It's an absolutely lovely touch that adds to the charming camp aesthetic of the game, while keeping the game more interactive. It makes you feel like you are a part of the world before you've even started playing. Just an absolutely lovely little detail. I know there's been a lot of build-up before actually talking about the first world, but I wanted to make sure I cover everything completely. Consider this to be the definitive Psychonauts video, so one final thing before I actually dive in. After you first select your bunk and go to bed for the night, we do get a quick tutorial section and the introduction of Ford Cruller, who I mentioned earlier, who is currently in one of his many alter egos. We will meet a lot of them throughout the game, and we'll definitely be talking about those alter egos later, but just know that every time we see him playing a different role, he is the same person, he just doesn't realize it. The tutorial breaks down camera movement and also explains how leveling up works. With Psy cards, which you can collect throughout the camp, you can build Psy challenge markers, which will give you a level. As you level up, you can unlock new psychic abilities as well. There are other ways to level up, but I'll talk about those in just a second. Now, for real this time, let's go to our first world, Basic Braining, aka the mind of Coach Oleander. Psychonauts actually gives a lot of depth to its first level. It's a war-ravaged mind, designed as an obstacle course, but it actually gives even more depth to Oleander as a character, and foreshadows later events in the game. Contrary to what the level might suggest, Oleander was never actually in the military. We will be deep diving into Oleander as a character towards the end of this series of videos, but for now, just know that Basic Braining basically exists as a contained portion of Oleander's mind, where he is a military general, teaching campers the basics of navigating the astral plane within people's minds. The area is scattered with barbed wires, mines, knives, and attack helicopters, which make it feel like you're at war. But what's so interesting about the world is that unlike later worlds in the game, which reflect the character's true feelings and thoughts, Basic Braining is somewhat disconnected from who Oleander really is. It's basically a facade where he plays a character, in this case, a military general, shouting out orders like he's in Full Metal Jacket or something. However, talking to Oleander and just looking around his workspace at Camp Whispering Rock, which you can see immediately before entering Basic Braining, can tell you a lot about who he is, even before the truth of his character is actually revealed. Oleander's workspace is full of drawings done by campers, showing he actually cares a lot for them, despite the rude things he might say in Basic Braining. You also get a taste of the caring interior immediately after beating the level, where Oleander says he has to go back into his brain because he doesn't want to leave any campers behind.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go back in. I left some good men back there.
Oleander cares a lot about the Psychonauts and the campers. I think he's one of the most fascinating characters in the whole game, and luckily we will have many more chances to discuss who he is as a person in several videos. Probably. But for now, let's talk about the level itself and go over the basics of how levels play throughout the game. As basic braining teaches the controls and basic abilities, you are introduced to a few key collectibles found throughout the whole game. Figments, emotional baggage, an absolutely wonderful pun which never gets old, mental cobwebs, and memory vaults. Each of these collectibles provides different benefits, some essential to the game itself, others just extras. I'll talk about them each here so I don't have to repeat myself in the future. I'll also give a little rundown of how many collectibles are in each level as I go, in case you're too lazy to look it up for yourself or something. The first collectible you encounter as you're learning to jump and double jump is Figments. Figments are exactly as they sound, figments of the imagination. Most of the time, figments take the shape of elements of the world around you. The first one you find is a scary monster who has a military helmet akin to one worn by World War I German soldiers. But spread throughout the level you'll find knives and planes and things of that sort that really match the world. But sometimes, figments do also tie into a deeper understanding of the character. I will definitely point some of those out as I find them. Figments are probably the most important collectible in the mental worlds because collecting them allows you to level up and unlock new abilities, some of which are absolutely required to beat the game. So it's always a good idea to grab figments when you find them, although some are definitely harder to get than others, and some are especially difficult to see. The second collectible we learn about is emotional baggage. In order to sort emotional baggage, you have to find a bag tag that matches the baggage and then reunite the pair. In most cases, the tag is near the bag, so this isn't too hard, and bags are fairly easy to find because you can hear them crying quite loudly a lot of the time. Now, at first it seems like you don't get anything for sorting emotional baggage, but when you sort all the bags in a level, you unlock a bunch of extras like promo art, and collecting enough will eventually level up your Psy rank as well. It also makes me really want a Psychonauts art book. I know the second game has one, but I don't think the first game ever got one because it's pretty far before the art book craze was a thing. But it was at the height of the strategy guide era, and I would love to get my hands on a copy of the strategy guide for reading purposes. But that's besides the point. The third collectible you can get is memory vaults. Now, memory vaults are absolutely essential for the lore of the world. They provide insight into the different characters' pasts and can help us connect pieces to the world we are in. Each memory vault gives a series of photos that sometimes are just flashes of memories, or other times they tell a story through photos. Like one of those old Viewmasters. Do people still know what a Viewmaster is? I had hundreds of those reels as a kid, but now I just feel old. Anyways, something interesting about the first memory vault we come across in Oleander's mind shows off his military prowess throughout the years, but as I mentioned, Oleander was never actually in the military. The vault, which Oleander himself tells you to open, is nothing more than a lie, probably created to look cool for the kids. You can also probably tell it's a lie because of the fact that Oleander looks comically taller, but that's neither here nor there. There is one other memory vault in basic braining. Every level has two. However, the second one is locked away until you unlock the Cobweb Duster later in the game, but since we're doing these in level order, it is important to talk about now. So, the first memory vault we grabbed was titled Oleander's Pride. The one that's all lies. But hidden behind some mental cobwebs, which are the last collectible I need to mention. Basically, they just give you arrowheads, which are a currency in the game, but you need a cobweb duster to collect them. The locked away vault is titled Oleander's Shame, and shows the truth of Oleander's life. He really wanted to join the military, but he was deemed too short by literally every single branch. It's a comedic piece of lore which I think tells a lot about Oleander. He never let his military aspirations die, instead turning from the real battlefield to the mental battlefield, and training a generation of mental soldiers instead. That's not the end of Oleander's story though, like I mentioned, and we will be talking about him more as a character later. But now that we have all the collectibles out of the way, let's do a little tour through basic braining, where we will really meet some of the other campers and see hints of what's to come. As I mentioned, mostly this level serves as a tutorial for the game. You learn to jump, climb, swing, scale, all the basic things. After making your way over some walls and past some friendly flamethrowers, we meet Bobby Zilch, a kind of antagonist in the game, in the sense that he is an asshole but not a real threat. Bobby impedes Raz's progress throughout the level by pushing him off a cliff. Thankfully, Raz is caught by Lily, another camper who is investigating an oddly meaty plant. Now, Lily is a very important character for the rest of the game, and is kind of a driving force of action as the game goes on. She's Raz's love interest and also the daughter of the grand head of the Psychonauts. Lily has a sort of abrasive personality at first, but mainly because she has been at Camp Whispering Rock so long that nothing is interesting anymore. As the game goes on, she begins to open up more to Raz as a mystery unfolds. For now, though, very curiously after saving Raz, which she says she only did just to stop him from crushing the meaty plant, Lily tells Raz that she's been seeing similar plants in her own dreams. Very weird. Surely that won't be something to keep an eye out for throughout the game. After meeting Lily, the game actually provides a few different paths forward. Either the normal route, platforming over some airplanes, or a quote-unquote super secret underground path, which takes you across the gap you need to cross. It doesn't really matter which way you go, and in this case I went both ways because I was trying to collect every figment, so at the end of the day, it's all about preference. I do appreciate that the game gives options for progression though, even if the progression is pretty moot in the grand scheme of the level. I think it does harken back to Oleander's more caring nature though, that he would hide an easier underground path just off to the side for campers who need a little boost. Continuing on, as Oleander continues to play the drill sergeant role, you make your way up some trampolines until you meet Dogen, another important character and one of my absolute favorites. Adorned with a tinfoil hat to withhold his terrifying mental powers, Dogen isn't the sharpest tool in the mental shed, and he is scared of trying to cross a minefield, so it's up to Raz to help him across. You don't actually have to help Dogen, but if you do, he rewards you with some arrowheads for your trouble. Dogen has a hard time controlling his powers, and in the opening cutscene he makes reference to blowing up someone's head by accident, hence the tinfoil hat.
And then you'll make their heads explode?
No. Do you do that?
No. Well, once kinda. But now I wear this special hat. Wanna try it on?
No.
If you talk to Dogen before going into basic braining, you'll actually see him talking with a group of squirrels, and he mentions voices saying that he should kill them. As Raz turns away, you get a short scene of Dogen with the squirrels mysteriously gone, and as Raz wanders off, their body parts rain from the sky. It's a real WTF moment, but also very funny. I love Dogen so much. After helping Dogen out, we press on, ending up in the cockpit of a plane with Vernon, a very long-winded camper who loves telling stories. If you stay and talk with him, he will literally talk forever, telling you a story about the longest walk he ever went on with his dog. It's a beautiful and touching story. I highly recommend listening for 10 hours or so.
For directions, and then lady had to go to the bathroom, and then lady saw a gopher. And then lady had to stop and scratch, and then walk 2 miles, and then walk 4 miles, and then walk half a mile, and then waiting dirt, and then had a snack, and then walk 4 miles, and then got half miles, and then got a whole half reset, and then moose still for a while, and then turn right, and then walk 3 miles, and then down time shoe, and then we saw over, and then waiting dirt, and then we had to go to the bathroom, and then
Eventually, you can punch your way out and skydive to the next objective, where you meet Crystal and Clem, 2 more campers who are unnaturally ecstatic. Like, really unnatural. They're stuck because they can't beat Coach Oleander's punching minigame, but thankfully, Raz is a combat pro and he can easily beat the minigame, where you have to punch targets shaped like skeletons, once again decked out in the World War I-ish gear, similar to the first figment we found. You're also supposed to avoid punching babies, but the game doesn't actually punish you for doing it, so feel free to wail away, I guess. There are so many characters in Psychonauts, and I'm only now realizing how many of them we actually get to briefly meet in this level. I will definitely talk more about their characters later on when I get to talking about Camp Whispering Rock as a whole. The rest of the level is fairly inconsequential up until the end. You learn to climb walls by swinging on pipes, do some parkour and stuff, make your way down to a spinning room of death which Oleander thinks you have no chance of getting through, and then finally, you make it to the end of basic braining, where you find yourself alone because no one else has completed the course yet. While wandering around the room, you can find a conveniently open door to a pristine white hallway, which you can walk down, prompting a cutscene where you get a very quick look at what is hidden behind a curtain at the end, what appears to be some kind of blueprint, before Oleander snatches you out, mildly annoyed at your snooping, but impressed that you made it through the course, and he rewards you with your basic braining merit badge. The blueprint in Oleander's weird secret hallway will have implications later in the game, but for now, we can put them out of our minds. Of interesting note though, if you revisit basic braining later, which you will have to do to collect the mental cobwebs, one of which is literally right next to the hidden hallway, you'll find that the door is actually completely chained up and you can't re-enter. It's a very nice small touch. One other thing you can find if you return to basic braining is where there used to be this turret in this snowy field, it has now been replaced by a bunch of rabbits in army helmets. The rabbits, along with the weird meat plant that we saw earlier, are going to be kind of reoccurring themes throughout the rest of the game, and they won't really fully be explored until the final level, the meat circus. So look forward to that, I guess. It'll be literally the last video in this series. And that is basic braining. After you leave Oleander's mind, Agent Sasha 9, aka the best character, invites Raz to take part in his super secret, super dangerous extra training at his hidden laboratory, and he gives you a special button to access the lab. But that will be the next video. For now, and to conclude this part, let's take one final look back at basic braining, and I figure I should rank it or something. In fact, I just decided right now I'm gonna make one of those tier list things to rank each level for funsies. Basic braining is a fairly basic level, but it does a good job of setting the tone for the game in terms of humor, as well as sowing the seeds of the growing mysteries that will continue in the future levels. It also introduces a few of the campers who will play a bigger role later on. In total, the level has 163 figments to collect, 5 mental cobwebs, 2 memory vaults, and as always, there are 5 pieces of emotional baggage. Since the game is 20 years old now, which is just crazy to think about, it should be said that the platforming can feel a little janky at times by modern standards, but honestly that kinda adds to the experience for me. There are also a few audio bugs that I've encountered because I'm running the game on much newer hardware than what it was built for, but I'm currently working on hopefully finding a fix for that. Anywho, I think if I had to rank this level, I would put it at an average C. It sets the tone, but there's definitely space to improve, and you could also do a lot worse or be a lot lazier with a tutorial level. So, I'll just drag that into my little tier list, and we will revisit that after the next episode. Until then, thank you so much for watching this video. I've always wanted to make a series of videos like this, analyzing one of my absolute favorite games of all time, so it feels really special to finally get around to doing this. I'm writing these scripts as I play the game and at the same time as working a full-time job and doing many other things, so I can't really promise any timeline for when these are going to come out, but just know that I am working on them, and please yell at me in the comments if I'm moving too slowly. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!